money like cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Customer, clientele. I was broke, that was last year. Getting money like cashier. Get the money like a cashier.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Dope Black Thoughts Live. My name's Kevin.
I'm Stefania.
And I'm Hashim, also known as Hashade.
Got a special guest with us coming in virtually. Introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Thomas Tafoya. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Believe Ian.
Yes, welcome.
Check him out on Twitter. So, we rescheduled a guest, and Ian helped us out and came in for us. And I really want to thank you for helping us pick up the slack. You actually have really important stuff to talk about. Talk about the organizations you work with. I put it on our flyer, but I didn't get to put it up. So please give us a in-depth introduction.
Yeah, sure. So I'm here representing two organizations today, the Colorado Latino Forum and GreenLatinos. I actually got started volunteering with the Colorado Latino Forum maybe 4 years ago. First, fighting the expansion of I-70, a racist highway expansion through very dirty soil that's going to impact a lot of people, and took houses in the community that I was from. And from there, I made my way into being the co-chair. Our mission is to increase the social, political, educational, and fiscal strength of Latinas and Latinos in our country, and in Colorado in particular. And we fight for justice reform in housing, in criminal justice reform, in education. And I've worked my way up to being the co-chair there. And in my work with Colorado Latino Forum, I was brought to Washington, D.C. to fight refinery permits for Suncor Energy. And there I met GreenLatinos, which is a national environmental justice organization. I had the opportunity to meet people that were just like myself. And I've been working for them for 2 years. I'm the first organizer in the country. And I go around and I help educate and empower communities on how to use the system back against the system, and to change it so we can improve our air, because everyone has a right to clean air, to clean water. Absolutely.
That's great.
Love it.
And that's more on the GreenLatinos portion of it, but on the Latino Forum, what sort of stuff are y'all getting involved in on that as well?
Well, so from an environmental justice front, for the last 3 years, we've tried to bring regulation for air toxics coming out of facilities like Suncor. There's a company that makes aircraft brakes in Pueblo that is literally half a mile from a school. So, we're trying to regulate them. There's been a farm workers bill that's trying to finally instill farm worker rights that I thought my grandmother fought for, that's introduced. We're fighting for inclusionary housing so that we can make sure rental properties also have to include affordable housing. I think we're all tired of seeing towers go up with empty promises about affordable housing. And then, we've been intimately involved in Denver and in Aurora with conversations around housing and homelessness and around police reform.
Okay.
Big deal, man. Big stuff.
The one thing about the Latino Forum that I think is pretty cool is there's 11 members now. All of us are run for office. You may know council members Crystal Murillo and Juan Mercano. They are members. Yep. Lisa Calderon is a member. Xochitl Gaitan from the Democratic Party. So we are committed, and we understand the politics. And we know that the Latinos are not a monolith, and sometimes we have to push from the left, and we do.
Absolutely. That's a big deal, pushing from the left. And obviously, when you're talking about Suncor or any major refineries, the people that are going to be forced to live the closest to those refineries and be downwind are going to be people of color and people experiencing poverty. Mm-hmm. And I personally, that was my upbringing, because I grew up literally down the street from ExxonMobil in Baytown, Texas. And my mom still lives on the same street, like right across the street from ExxonMobil. So I definitely, my heart's in it when you start talking about, regulating these refineries. And honestly, I have friends that work at Suncor, and I actually turned down two jobs at Suncor because people in there are going to be catching cancer. That's another thing we want to talk about, the workers. They're going to be in there catching cancer, catching all these different maladies, and there'll be mystery illnesses, even if it's not just straight up blastoma, and then all the people around there, what are you contributing to the environment? So it's a big deal to me. But I kind of want to open the floor, for questions if anybody has any.
Well, I want you to talk more about your stance on affordable housing, because I think it is very important, especially in Colorado, in Denver Metro, where we're seeing elevated rents and elevated mortgage, the cost of housing. So what are you doing? What is the push there? Where are you guys working? What are you doing? And how can other people get involved?
Well, so for the last couple of years, there's been conversations about rent control bills. And for the listeners who aren't familiar, in the 1970s, there was a well-funded organization, I believe ALEC is its name. I cannot remember what the acronym stands for, but they pushed a lot of conservative policies across the United States. And they kind of wrote cookie cutter legislation where you plug and play to restrict certain things. And here happened to be rent control. We also saw the city of Telluride years ago try to require this affordable housing requirements, inclusionary housing, certain amount built, and it went to the Supreme Court, and it was found to be a form of rent control. And since rent control is not illegal, we've been in a situation where we don't have this as a tool in our toolbox for the development of affordable housing. And so for 2 years, we tried to go for all of it at once. To try to cap how fast you can grow your rent and to empower renters for the last few years. Habitability and warrantability, mold, these are things that are experiencing in our communities. It's fascinating the amount of rights that are being taken away from people with trailer park homes, and yet tiny homes are all the rage, and people look down at people for living in trailers. They're the same options, just branded differently. And so we try to empower mobile home stuff. We worked on those bills. Right now, as I was saying before, I think we came on here, the inclusionary housing thing, I think, is in the Senate right now. And what it would do would be allow local communities to make a decision. You're in Aurora, you're in Denver. You can say, you know what, we're gonna gather a task force together, and we're gonna say, if you build X amount of units, they have to be this amount of affordability. There's an eviction crisis coming. We have been vocal advocates from the beginning of the pandemic for both mortgage relief for people who are trying to own homes or small businesses, and also those who are paying rent. And, for the homeless, I also work with an organization called the Headwaters Protectors. We go out every Sunday and we clean up trash, and we provide water without plastic bottles using more sophisticated water delivery systems from people in the events industry. So, my mother works for Commerce City in housing, and she's worked in many forms of housing in her life as a social worker with unhoused families. And it's an issue that is really unnecessary, given that we're the richest country in the world, that our economy is number 2 and we're skyrocketing. And this is, again, broken promises. And I think Indigenous people are tired of the broken promises. So we're pursuing policy where we can. And I think we're getting smarter. I wouldn't be surprised in the next year or two if you start to see a statewide rent control issue pushed by the people who are going to be suffering the most when things go back to a normal that didn't work for us to begin with.
Right. Didn't work for us to begin with. Very, very poignant. Okay. That's interesting. I like it. And so what can people do to get involved if they want to help with push the initiative?
Well, I think at the Senate level, I can't remember the bill number, I apologize, but you just go to Colorado Legislature and you type in the word inclusionary housing, or if you just type in housing, it'll come up, and you can filter them out. It will be a bill from the year 21. And what you can always do is testify yourself, send a letter, tell 5 friends, make a meeting with your legislator, talk about it at a meeting that you were going to be at anyways. It's this basic ground game when it comes to passing legislation. And if you want to get even more involved, then I would say talk to the legislator. Like, if you have a story you want to tell and writing an op-ed, or you want help with that, that's who I would contact.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about the article. I'm sorry, Hashim, go ahead.
You're good. I was just saying, I definitely agree with that. Like, get involved, reach out to your legislature, your personal one where you live in, like House or state, and also to the ones on the committee as well. Even if you don't live in their district, they're still responsible to listen to you. But it's also good to always make sure that they have a nice plethora of emails, phone calls, messaging, and all this type of stuff to help lend them positive encouragement. In my experience, this cycle and last, but specifically this cycle, that things are just dropping down party lines for the most part on stuff that should be common sense, right? Like environment. We can hate each other. Like all four of us can represent four different cliques. But one thing that we should agree upon is the environment, right? Because if we decimate it and destroy it, who cares who wins?
Yeah.
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
Especially living in Colorado where water is becoming such a scarcity. Now it's like
living in America, living on Earth, where water has become such a scarcity. Yeah.
But you know, in Texas, I grew up near the Gulf, and we just never heard about scarcity of water. And the second I moved here, hearing people that were politically involved, they were talking about droughts coming, talking about, you know, how are people going to run their farms? How are we going to provide clean water? It just seems so much more urgent down here. And, you know, it really made me appreciate it because I was always more concerned about air quality. But I want to bring that up because you were talking about, you sent me an article, and I'm actually afraid to screen share it because I haven't done this for a long time. I feel like I'm going to
on that browser, huh?
But yeah, you sent me a CPR article about some people breaking the rules and going ahead and polluting the air. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I want to give some background here. I guess we'll start with that. You know, in Denver, there's a national ranking based on the amount of particles in the air and how dangerous it is for your body. And it ranges from everything's good to moderate to severe. Well, about 10 years ago, we were moderately out of attainment. Now we're severely out of attainment. And what that means is not about numbers, it's about people and mothers with their children waking with asthma attacks, or elders like my grandmother who have a COPD attack, people's lives who are lost schooling, lost costs. You know, it connects to housing because they're double dipping us because we're spending money on healthcare that we can't spend on other things to advance our lives in the way that we choose to. So we've been working on air legislation, as I told you, for the last couple of years, trying to rein it in every avenue, the Air Quality Control Commission, the Public Utilities Commission. I could probably list 5.
I think we lost her for a moment.
Okay, well, if you guys see that article,
we do.
Okay, I mean, this is pretty bad. Looking like that they're falsifying data. Ian, oh, okay, he's back. There you go. Ian, go ahead.
Sorry about that, y'all. I don't know what happened there. So yeah, we've been working on air pollution bills for several years now. We're fighting in every avenue. I could list more organizations with acronyms, and you know what it feels like to me is like prejudice by procedure, that we have to have the skills and the resources to fight in all these avenues and delay and task forces and all this stuff. It's real hard to swallow while they're poisoning our kids, while air pollution's getting worse. And we find out bombshell news. We have our own Flint, Michigan here. The people who are in charge of protecting us from these businesses are apparently colluding with these businesses. And, you know, it wasn't just one whistleblower, it was 3 whistleblowers that come together, say this spans back more than 10 years, right? It sure seems to make a lot of sense when we've seen our air pollution decline for the last 10 years, you know, and we don't know all the details. We know that it's been given to the environmental protection agencies to investigate. And we had a press conference on Thursday, Colorado Latino Forum, Wild Earth Guardians, and 350 Colorado, demanding the removal of the person who has been identified, Gary Kaufman, from the office, and that we want to see a full investigation from both Phil Weiser and Governor Polis. It is unacceptable for collusion to continue, especially post-COVID, as we have seen Black and Brown communities transform forever with our lost elders and loss of culture.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Black and Brown communities being suffering at this, I'm curious as what is the collaboration work that your organizations do with the Black community?
Well, I think a couple things. One, we first have to accept our own colorism. We understand that our Black Latinos, and we understand that we have issues with that. And so that's number one. We've had to deal with that. We've also had to deal with the fact that the Latino culture, I think, has a lot of machismo and anti-homosexual. We've had to deal with that. We've had to deal with patriarchal connections to that. And before we can do our internal work, then we can turn to other communities. And we have been. I think the team ups, in particular by me in Montbello, have been to educate the youth and empower the youth most of all. Putting on environmental justice roundtables, going in opportunities to talk to them, and then encouraging them to participate in the process with us.
Got you. And I understand all that, and I just get mad. I get mad at white supremacy and colonialization because it put all that stuff in the mix that we have to sift out. And and I challenge, I work and deal in progressive spaces and left spaces, and I always hear the thing of, well, we have to get this first in order to take care of this. And I'm like, well, can we develop that mindset to be multifaceted with our work while we're clearing up our house and getting right within? We also should be branching out to help move forward, because the enemy the common enemy, right, white supremacy, is cool with take your time, work all your stuff out, and then go ahead and build that bridge, because we're still getting stronger while you're trying to do your stuff. And then once you finish that, you got to deal with getting classism out of your stuff.
Yeah.
So
I will say last year I had the opportunity to be a guest on Juneteenth, and I think it was in a perfect time last year to be having the conversation about the massacres that took place here. Mm-hmm. They're 6 months apart from each other. These narratives have been linked together. We've seen it now with the Asian hate too. They burned Chinatown to the ground. We're only barely starting to talk about that, and I know that because I grew up in Cole. I would also just like to share, I'm a board member of Historic Denver, and we've been really trying to challenge the conversation about the narratives of historic places and who's being talked about and how.
Gotcha. So as being a member of the Historic Denver, I'm sure you understand why there was a need for a Chinatown, and you're not even running for mayor of Denver.
Say that again.
I'm sorry, that may be being giving a shout out at one of the past mayoral candidates.
You broke up a little bit.
I said, okay. I was saying, I got you. I understand. I'm sure that he understands, while sitting on the board of Historic Denver, the reason we needed a Chinatown, or the reason there was a Chinatown, unlike one of the candidates that was running for mayor of Denver.
Oh, yeah, okay.
who had a degree in urban development and urban planning. I'm like, huh? But anyway.
Break that down for some of us who may be lost, and it may be me.
Okay, all right. So no problem. So first, the statement is, we'll work our way backwards. The people messed up by not voting for Lisa Calderon if they want to change, period. That's the post. But then to work backwards, it was a runoff between Jamie Gillis and Mayor Michael Hancock. And, Jamie Gillis had a whole lot of blind spots, as they said, as it comes to race and things outside of white culture. Yeah. And one of the blind spots, after she did not understand or did not know what NAACP stood for the second time, she made a comment. This is right. I'm trying to think, was the comment before she did the Lowriders and Latinos event, or was it before or after? I forget that.
I think it was after.
Okay. But she's like, well, why do we even need, or why was there a Chinatown? And I'm like, what? So because that was the only part where your ancestors put those people to live.
They weren't allowed anywhere else.
Out of mainstream society.
Yeah, so she had made that comment. I'm sure there's debate now whether Denver's better off, whether she won or lost against Hancock. But I still rewind and double back down on my statement. If you want a true change, you should have voted for Lisa Calderon. Yeah. Period.
What gives me pause is it makes me sad to think that we had to come through all this in order for different groups to come together as one. Martin Luther King said it, an injustice to one is an injustice to all, but for some reason that did not resonate with people until they were attacked individually in individual groups. And now we're all trying to hold hands with each other and saying, okay, now the Black Lives Matters and the Latinos and the Chinese and the Asians need to come together. Sorry, not Chinese, the Asians need to come together. And we've known this for years. We've known that the more that there's strength in numbers, if we would come together and fight white supremacy, not, white supremacy, which is a disease, then we could maybe eradicate this from our society.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's going across all the communities. We keep saying it may seem like it's only going on with Black folks because we're talking about it when it happens, but it's happening every day. Right. And you brought up a big one, Ian, that colorism. That's been a plague in the Black community. It's a plague in the Latino community. It's a plague, even in the Asian communities as well. Colorism is a real thing, especially when we start getting to the Arab countries, the Persian countries. In Africa, they're bleaching their skin to feel able to fit in or to feel more high class and whatnot. It's really a thing.
Well, you know what? I can tell you that I felt the pressure to cut my hair and not wear jewelry. I felt that, and I had long hair, longer than this, and then I went to work for Mayor Malcolm Hancock, right out of college. On urban agriculture, actually. That's what I went there to go write a white paper for him about. And I just felt so pressured. And then I lived in La Alma Lincoln Park, and being around all those murals really empowered me to feel like, like I can do this. And actually, Lisa Calderon's ex-husband, Jerry Smith, is a friend of mine. I used to run with him at the gym and exercise. And I remember asking him, I said, how come you don't have to wear a suit like this? And I want to wear my bolos and stuff. He's like, you just start doing it and you never look back.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Accept your culture. Don't let them take away your culture.
Yeah. And it's also good to have a supportive environment as well, too, not to venture off too far. But I remember I was working on Morgan Carroll's congressional campaign for CD6. And, I was like, I'm going to wear a dashiki. And I wore one day. And it was like, cool. And I remember I was somewhere and someone, there was a Black person was like, did y'all have a cultural event? Like, what you in a dashiki for? I'm like, yeah, a cultural event called Monday, right? Like it was just a regular day. But, I tipped my hat to Morgan and thank her because she was, it just wasn't a thing. It was just, okay, that's what you wear. Cool.
Yeah, I'm flashing back just thinking about the hair. I'm flashing back to that story about the young wrestler being told he had to cut his dreads if he wanted to go forward with the match.
Yes.
A young Black woman being told they need to cut their hair if they want to cross the stage and get their diploma.
Right.
So just seeing you guys with your hair, and everyone else on the stream.
Oh yeah, Hashim. I mean, they tried to pass a law saying that dreadlocks were illegal.
Right. And then I tipped my hat to Colorado State Representative Leslie Herrick when we were talking about this in the Crown Act. That passed, and I testified in regards to that. So yeah, it's always a process. I mean, and then some of that stuff comes from your own community as well too. Like the thing of respectability politics of you should get a haircut and wear your hair faded and all that type of stuff. Which is just a barrier for us making progress. It's all about that assimilation thing. And there's nothing that I could do if I cut my hair, if I put a concholine in my hair, and have my hair straightened out. There's nothing that I can do that would ever make you see me as white. So why not live my life and celebrate it in my Blackness and who I am, in the stuff that they steal from us anyway,
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ian, talk to us more about some economic stuff because we're thinking, we're in the repercussions of everything going on in Atlanta and in Georgia in general because of their voting rights, their voter suppression and whatnot. Give us some thoughts about that. We talked about it last week, but it's still very relevant. And I know, you're here, obviously.
About you want me to talk about disenfranchisement? It's terrible.
Yeah.
We have to do everything in our power to stop it. I was disenfranchised once. I was cleared from the rolls. First time to show up to vote for Obama. I went in to go speak, and we had a Republican, Gessler, I believe, was the secretary. There was this talk about all this stuff purged. I walked in, they go, you're not on the rolls. I said, I've been voting since I was 18 years old. And they said, well, you can vote for provisional. It's like, I know what that means. So I actually was lucky that I had the time to go to Manual High School, actually, and I had to go in front of a special judge to get it counted regular. But it took me 3 hours. It's so wrong. And, you know, as a water protector, to outlaw giving water, like I would, you know, that is, I would curse right now, but I don't, there's, you know, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Water is life. Water belongs to all of us. I am Hickory Apache and Okewinge, the chief of the Hickory Apache. He says water is free and should be free to everyone.
Yes, I agree. But now they're working to put futures on water. And I'm like, oh my God, why can't we unify this? Like, I mean, you know, in the Black neighborhoods, I mean, what, to use the terms they use, right? In the ghetto, in the barrios, in the trailer parks, why can't we all come together and be like, yo, not this. We'll go fight about our other stuff later, but not this.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're talking about a poor people's party right there. That'll put a red dot on you.
Mm-hmm.
That would definitely put a red dot on you. But talking about white supremacy, MJ Carter sent us a question. What is a white paper? And, you know, I've heard that term a million times and I had to look it up myself. A white paper is a report or guide that informs readers concisely about a complex issue and presents the issuing body's philosophy on the matter. Basically, if you want to know what's really correct, you need the white paper.
Right, because white can explain it.
Yeah, right.
If it's white, it's right.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's in case anyone's looking, don't attack Ian because he did not make up the term white paper.
Well, I'll tell you what was the context of it, which was pretty cool. Our goal was to get to 20% local food by 2020. But like every other environmental goal under Mayor Hancock's leadership, we have not reached any. So that has been incredibly disappointing as just an environmentalist, hence why I'm running petition ballots. I'd love to talk about those in a little bit. It's the coolest program I learned about was one called Fruits of the City, and it was from St. Paul, Minnesota. And they work to register people who have fruit trees, and they work to salvage every piece of fruit from those trees. And then they get some of it diverted to schools, some of it to food banks, and then they take some of it to factories for added products. And they use adults with disabilities and youth to get jobs to make applesauces and all sorts of really cool things. And so they're working collectively to just keep what's already available to them that's going to waste.
Wow.
That's good. I love it.
Where is that located?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay. Is that part of the Twin Cities?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I'm seeing here.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I mean, when are we gonna start doing some stuff like this in Aurora, man? I've been hearing about farmers markets being opened up at the mall. You know, they're over here shutting stuff down and closing things up.
I mean,
well, you know, the suburbs, the Aurora is certainly primed, I think, for community garden. There's plots of land that could do that and for farming. There are great groups across Colorado, the Mile High Young Farmers, for example, who are working to help people. The USDA has opportunities for all of us, you and me, to access loans if we want to become farmers. And there's actually a bill in the state legislature right now that's going to create a voluntary program for incentives for doing soil health work. So instead of pouring pesticides and stripping the soil to grow, we're actually trying to build soil, because the Dust Bowl blew like 6 feet of topsoil out of here. And that's where we hold our water. And that's also contributing to why we have less water.
What?
Interesting.
That's amazing. So yeah, this is all news to me. Who are you? Okay, so you named Chris Maria, Juan Marcano. I met you through Allison Hiltz, right?
Emily Hiltz. You met me through Emily Hiltz. Yeah, we're friends.
Okay.
We worked on the Ready for 100 campaign together, and she's a great friend of mine. One of the hardest workers I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's bad. I can't say the other word because
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Bad isn't good.
Absolutely. So do you deal with EDF, the Environmental Defense Fund?
Sure, I work with them in coalitions.
Okay. I'm starting to flash back to because I met you like a year ago.
Well, when we first met, I was really interested in talking with you. This is right before the pandemic, or maybe it was right after it started. I'm not sure. but I got a report that I was working on to try to figure out how we can make sure Belo Romero never happens again. If y'all aren't familiar, in Greeley, Colorado, they allowed the drilling of a well just hundreds of feet away from an elementary school and a playground outdoors. There's been incidents at this location with teachers and youth being exposed to short-term amounts of pollution and benzene, of which there are not safe levels. They weren't informed right away. And now the government's trying to take their air monitor away. The same division that we're dealing with this corruption is trying to take that away. And we are, trying to fight back on that. And what I was talking to you about was I had some students take a look at how can school board directors be involved and school boards be involved in oil and gas decisions, because y'all are elected officials and you all have a voice too. And in my opinion, I think probably you would agree, protecting the health of both the teachers and the students.
Absolutely. And you know what? I need to make a request to get you onto the agenda, because we need you not to just talk to Aurora School Board. You need to talk to CASB, Colorado Association of School Boards, because we get together annually and vote on things like how much spacing should we have away from a drilling or a mining operation, and they're talking about, should it be a mile or a half mile? And just knowing from Exxon, having friends that live, 4 or 5 miles downwind of there, and they have a baby that will have breathing issues. And the second they stop having those incidences, they call them emissions events. As soon as they stop having those events, the baby's fine.
Which you'll never see in Highlands Ranch. That will never happen in Highlands.
Well, Ian, maybe you should check with like Blue Rising, because they're really involved right now. Maybe they can redirect some energy instead of focusing on potency for cannabis, but in making sure that everybody is safe as it relates to the environment. And also, I think there's like a Boulder group of moms that also care about like this cannabis stuff, and they can redirect their energy in protecting the environment so that people can breathe and no one has to die, since there are no safe levels of benzene. And when you say the feet, and people really care more like how far cannabis stores and grows are from schools, more so than they care from poisonous and explosive materials are from schools and homes. And I'm like, society's so messed up. But I definitely believe those suburban moms need something to do. And they should, if they really care about kids, as they've been telling us in the cannabis industry that they do, they definitely should jump on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can make introductions and things if you need that. So
I would be happy to talk to anybody about this. We all have to be part of the solution to turn the page post-COVID and restore the earth. I mean, we just have to.
I think Dawn Riley's head of Blue Rising. She has me blocked on Twitter. I don't know if she has me blocked on her cell phone, because I like to ask factual questions. But she's definitely a name that you can reach out to.
I'm leaving this one on the screen for a second there, because that green school buses, man, that's a big one.
Right.
Yes, electrification is super important. And with my work with Green Latinos and the Latino Forum, we actually intervened as the very first environmental justice coalition at the Public Utilities Commission around transportation electrification. And what it really we're trying to do is making sure that what we don't have is green gentrification, which is the installation of upgrades into your home that you can't use and you don't have access to getting the means to use them, and that ultimately being used against you to raise your rent and move you out. We need to be talking about ownership as well. We will not have climate justice unless we own the energy and the owns of the means of the industry. Green Latinos, we're about to announce our new motto, but it has to do with environmental liberation and our next 5-year mission post-COVID. And I can tell you, I participated with our members across the country in producing it, and we will accept nothing less but policy that turns us in a U-turn.
That's right.
Good.
This should, once again, this should be the hard line. The unmovable line is the environment, and that's air, land, and water.
Basics.
Right. Basics. It's the basics. Unless there's plans to be some white flight out to Mars.
That's right. They're working on it.
Or the moon. Yeah.
Earth gentrification. Good Lord.
Oh, well, okay. I realize why I brought up the transportation electrification plan. So I want to talk to you about what it's like to be the first group to ever intervene as an EJ group. Okay. first meeting that we have, we turn out so many people that it overloads their system. So they lock people out, including elected officials. And do they have a second meeting to make up for their errors? Absolutely not. Okay, then I'm really pissed off about this. So I call some people who are more experts in the PUC than me, and they're like, you know what? You can just show up like on a Wednesday, and in the beginning, you can say your piece, right? And I was like, cool. How do I do that in the virtual era? Then I go in a rolling circle online trying to make a comment. They have a comment thing online, but there's no way to click to make a comment about them.
Sheesh.
And then I call them, get put on hold for 30 minutes. They never pick it back up. I call back, I leave a voicemail, I get a person. He says, I'm pretty new, I don't have an answer. I still do not have an answer, but I'm talking to others who can help give me answers. And then we have I go to Southern Colorado, all the way from West Cliff to La Junta, meeting with people, trying to talk to them about transportation electrification, about circulator buses for the poor, especially in Pueblo, about connecting the jail system to the bus system. My father was in Canyon City. It was nearly impossible to visit him unless you had a car. Mm-hmm. And even then, it was challenging for hours and costs. Everything makes it hard. And so I want to see buses connect that region and to the Royal Gorge in Canyon City. It's about public lands access. It's about reconnecting families. So I do all this work. They have a public hearing. It's advertised. Did I lose you? From 4 to 7.
We still hear you.
Okay, from 4 to 7, my connection just said it lower down. From 4 to 7, it's advertised to be open. We show up, only 3 people are there right at 4. It's a working class town. They closed it at 4:19 and said because no one registered before, they could just do that. This is what it feels like. And when I had a chance to be brought up to the stand the first time, as the very first EJ leader ever at the PUC, they said, nah, we understand it enough. We're good. They didn't ask me any questions. And we just got a brand new PUC commissioner, and guess what? They're all white still.
Oh, man.
So who chooses the PUC commissioners?
Governor.
Governor Polis?
Yes. And his Air Quality Control Commission is full of oil and gas executives.
So this is 2021, right? 2022 is election year for if he's going to be an incumbent, which I think he is. I think there should be no quiet, restful places. None, right? None. And this might require diaphragm work because we're going to get back to in-person thing. Give them no break. Push the environment question. Period. People of color that are out here watching this, he has no access. Give them, not just him. No elected official has access until they have pre-answered some questions, right? Like you got to hold these people accountable. I'm not going to take up the time with the political organizing. For more information on that, please reach out to the HTC Solutions.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I would really love to just take a moment to thank all the environmental justice leaders at the Capitol now who are fighting. Mm-hmm. Dominique Jackson, Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez, Julie Gonzalez, Winter and Sirota. I mean, Valdez, Benavides, Moreno, like our people are fighting and I'm in the meetings with them.
That's what's
and
up.
It is hard. They're the tip of the spear trying to face down the system and the governor isn't giving. We have to get loud. I have been told this by leaders that we have to be loud. You're right on it. But I really the Latino Forum, actually, we're going to be, I think, buying an ad here to say thank you to these legislators, to lift them. Because even when our backs were against the wall and they're in these weird sessions, they still passed some rules, including the ability to go after air polluters. And wouldn't it be fascinating if the very first people prosecuted under our air rule were our own people in the government?
That'd be awesome.
Fascinating indeed.
It felt good to hear those names. I'm like, I know them. I know all those names. But it takes more than just knowing them and feeling good. They need our support, right? Because they're one vote of many. And, some people don't like to go against the governor, right? Because they're concerned about their future political careers. And the thing should be like, if you don't care about the people, this is your political career. period.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we lost him for just
we
a
lost
second. I got him back.
He's back. And this is another reason why we need statewide broadband access.
Thank you. We need to lay that fiber. We need that.
Well,
broadband.
You know, I could tell you that real blah blah the broadband, excuse me, is I hear all the time. But I just want to go back to Polish really quick. You know, I was arrested for singing pre-COVID, right before at the Capitol. 38 of us for singing to raise awareness about Belo Romero. After the troopers faced us down, I was facing 2.5 years in jail and $5,000 in fines for singing for less than a minute. And I spent a day in jail, and many people did very large bonds. And it just is, we made, and there was no soap in the jails right before COVID. Actually, COVID was in America. We know that now. And through our spokesman, so Joe Salazar, our lawyer, when we got out, we raised awareness about the jails and about the safety in the jails of soap. And, you know, and then what happens? We see it with our own eyes, you know, and it's so funny. I ended up going, when I went in, I was traveling to Washington, D.C. I was invited there to speak about water as a water protector in the Capitol in Congress. And I had to go in front of the judge to ask permission to travel. And she said, what are you here for? Like, I'm a terrorist. I can't travel, right? I'm on a no fucking fly list because I was singing. And I said, I'm going there to speak on water. She goes, this is just disgraceful. And she let me go, and she took my bond away. You know, but it's like, it's still, I had never been to jail. You know, my family had been to jail. That's like a cultural thing. Like, I kind of was proud I hadn't been to jail.
Yeah.
And, you know, then I got took all away from me for doing the right thing. You wouldn't believe the times the cops have hassled me for giving water to the poor. You wouldn't believe how they surrounded me in RTD because I went down there to sit, eat, and lie after they said it was illegal.
And that's what's going on in this voter suppression. You can't give water to people waiting 11 hours in line. Now, you said you're a water protector, and that term flashes me back to Standing Rock, which also makes me think about the Keystone XL. And are you pleasantly surprised with Joe Biden on some of his reversals, at least environmentally, when it comes to the pipeline and whatnot?
I'm hopeful of what I'm seeing with Joe Biden's policies. I'm hopeful with the conversations I've been having with Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett, Diana DeGette, and others about legislation that we've had ready to go until we've had this power to make it through. He has a long way to go on delivering, you know, just an infrastructure plan is not climate justice. If the raw materials are extracted in our communities, if the asphalt and concrete is made in our communities, if the short-term vehicles to widen the highways in our communities are in our communities, this doesn't work. And this is true whether we're talking about Polis's transportation, if we get a transportation bill that he supports, or the other way around with the president.
And the construction contracts, they need, you know, they need trucks. They need to be able to transport this stuff. The county and the state need to be prioritizing Black and brown communities and working class communities to be first in line to receive these contracts.
Right.
I personally know people that have started businesses that were working poor for decades and just got the right contract and just bought a old piece of whatever from the junkyard, from the auction, actually, not the junkyard, from the auction, and have been in business and never worked for anybody again. So we can do it, and it can be supported by the governor, by all of our legislature. We just need the governor to not fight it.
Yeah, this is, and we have to remember to scratch the paint. Don't just be satisfied with this is the infrastructure bill. Yay! No. What does that mean, right? Like, where are the resources coming from to build this? What's the pollution going to be like in building this type of infrastructure, right? And Kevin, your point, who's going to get the jobs? Like, who's going to be employed? Who's going to get the big contracts? Who's going to employ the people? Who's going to make sure the people are getting their paychecks properly, right? That there's not wage theft that's occurring on this type of stuff. There's so much that we have to be involved in. And for those who are listening, I understand it's tedious. I understand there's a lot of stuff that you like, yeah, this is boring. I don't get this or whatever. But what I implore you to do, a way around that, right? Here's the shortcut. Find someone who you trust that knows the information and do what they do while you are educating yourself to get better on the subject matter. That's it.
He says with Obama looking right over his shoulder. Look, Marcus has a really interesting question.
Not even Obama. I got Marcus Garvey. I have W.B. Du Bois, and I also have Harriet Tubman as well. So I mean, it's a collective. It's
another vision test. I just went to the eye doctor too.
Okay.
What is an alternative for roads not of concrete?
Well, that's kind of a good question. You know, there's different kinds of materials, but one right off the bat, they make the hempcrete, which actually is a great product and it uses what we have. But, you know, I don't think arguing that we don't want to make roads out of concrete, but we need to say, are we using our concrete wisely? Are we wasteful in what we're creating in the first place? Are we widening where we don't need to? Are we producing projects that are larger than the scale than they need to be? Are we mitigating the fumes from the cooking fumes to bake this raw material for ourselves? And honestly, there's a huge fight going on right now in Glenwood Springs because there's a strip mine that wants to get gravel to make concrete here for our towers, and it may jeopardize the hot springs.
Come on, man. No, you can't do that.
Wow.
Trump's, you know, there was a lot of connections in the Bureau of Land Management to powerful lobbyists and attorneys here from Colorado and the Trump administration.
And Hashim, you brought up the big contracts. Also, what about the thousands of small contracts?
Yes.
Yeah.
The entry points for these Black and brown communities to enter into financial independence.
So there's this thing. Oh gosh, and all the wording just left me right now. The disparity studies that are figuring out who gets what or who doesn't get what. And I'm not certain. I've lost track of finding it out. Like, is it running? But as of 2016, do you know that there was not a mechanism at the state level, and I don't think at any municipal level, that tracked who got the contracts? Like
2016?
The breakdowns of it. Yes. So, and this is how white supremacy works, right? If we have no data, all you saying is a problem is hearsay. You don't know what you're talking about. So the systems are set in place not to capture the data. And I believe that Rep. Salazar, and at the time it was Rep. Williams, Angela Williams, tried to get a bill through. It failed. Then I believe the next cycle, it was Senator Morgan Carroll, and she was at the time Rep. Rhonda Fields, tried to get a bill through. It failed. So, and I will admit, this is my own political ignorance. I'm not certain if there's anything going on like that right now for this contract monitoring. And this is a part of bringing people out of poverty. Right. This is a part of helping people be able to survive, is monitoring who's getting these contracts. And, you know, oh gosh, we're on a whole other thing now in my head. So then it talks about, well, we can't find Black or brown contractors, right, that have the skill set. Okay, cool, I'll give you that, but I need you to tell me why. Right, why you can't find them, and that's because you have not the barriers have been in place to keep us out, so we don't have the proper training. And then some of that sometimes is a lie that we can't find it, right? So sometimes we just need to extend to different states to bring that in to satisfy. But for ABC, like Always Buy Colorado and to improve Colorado, there should always be something in the contracts, in the approvals that say we will train X number of companies, Black and brown companies that can do this work. We will hire X number of Black and brown people locally that can do this work. Like that's how you build our economy, instead of bringing people in from outside and letting all that money fall out. So,
you know,
let me step down off this.
E470.
Yeah, E470. Now look, you said you know they're putting barriers, but the barriers are also in the contracting requirements, such as net value or net worth. You have to have a net worth of $500,000 to qualify as a Black business to receive that, you know, step up in line and say, oh no, we're trying to help Black businesses. Yeah, if you're worth $500,000.
Right.
What if I rent? What if I don't own a whole lot of property, but I have the wherewithal? I do have the training. There's a ton of people with the training that you're borrowing, and it's all in the fine print. You know,
right.
they say they're looking, they say they're providing these advantages and opportunities, but trust me, I'm in a meeting room with minority business organization, and we see, I'm like, oh well, I'm instantly disqualified.
The movable finish lines that they have always imposed on the equity in black and brown communities.
Yep, and this is how
and then when you complete that, they move it again.
Right. Yeah. And so it's a movable finish line. But this is also when I talk about how racism is colorblind. Our racist policies are colorblind. They don't say this, no black or brown businesses. But they just be like, what do black or brown businesses lack? Oh, they lack capital? Put a capital requirement in here. Oh, they lack tenure and being able to have this? Put that in there. Like, it's just, trust us when we tell you.
We weren't lying about it. And it also pushes you into a different pool. So you could be looking for a Denver County contract, and you say, "Oh, well, I'm not eligible for this," but you're eligible for the regional one. But these contracts are going as far west as all the way to Utah. It's like now I'm in a massive pool of other contractors. So when we're bidding for jobs, I'm competing against thousands, if not thousands of instead of 5 or 10. There's treachery. It's treacherous, and I think we can figure it out because at the local level, when we look at our marijuana businesses opportunities we're providing in Aurora for the courier services and whatnot, we're getting that figured out how to put black and brown people ahead instead of saying, "Oh, we can't figure it out. Why aren't they involved?"
Maybe because they aren't talking to the owners. I'm not shooting at Aurora. This is more shots at Denver and at the state. Like, maybe you should talk to the black and brown owners instead of giving your shell Ponzi black or brown person a license and be like, "See, we're talking to them." No.
Token.
Yes.
They're talking to the token.
I mean, they could be a token or they could just be a shell. One or the other.
Yeah.
One or the other, or both. But yeah. Which is why a great company, I know this is a unshameless plug, BBRB, Black, Brown, and Red Badge, which is an organization here that represents the black and brown business owners in the cannabis industry. So, yeah, and that is a teaser for a show to come. But, there's just so much work to be done.
We need to do a whole show about that, Hashim. We need you to break that down because we wanted to talk about that a couple of weeks ago. I think people are going to be surprised. They're going to be seeing Hashim's name all over the place. They're going to be seeing DBT's name all over the place. Again, going to be seeing Aurora doing some big things. We're movers and shakers around here.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
absolutely. In a good way.
Yeah.
Listen, there's no such thing as bad press.
Right.
Well, okay. So this is either Marcus or Michael saying tokenism has become a serious problem, and that's facts. That's big facts. That's how they do it. They get their Ben Carsons or their Paris Denards out there.
I was watching today, and we're talking about voter suppression again, and of course, the governor of Atlanta's got a photo op with 3 or 4 black people behind him, talking about he's not going to. He's up for the challenge to fight to keep this law in place, and I question it every time. How? Why? What is your thought process that you would stand behind a man who goes completely against your own interest?
I mean, what is it? Munchausen syndrome or Stockholm syndrome?
Stockholm. Yeah.
That's when you fall in love or you don't find you idolize the person who's abusing you.
Yeah, a name for the old people, Patty Hearst, right? But no, I'm not going to get all into that.
I know who it is. Jaden might not, but
hey, look, I might be too young, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Al Gore's internet is still out there.
Yeah, dude.
That's right. Look it up.
Yeah, so like, our guest that we had on, he's busy out here in these political streets and these activism streets, so we had to drop off. Appreciate him. Yeah, we definitely appreciate him for taking the time. You heard the initiatives that are out there, right? GreenLatinos and the Latino initiative. So these are organizations that basically affect everybody. You know me, Black is my focal point first. And I would love for there to be more partnerships with these organizations with the Black community. Because sometimes it feels that traction is made with suppression of Black folks. And so I hate to see that happen as it relates to things like environment, because everybody shares environment. everybody shares environment. So yes.
I was just putting that up just so people can see the website. I ain't trying to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. That was it. I mean, I ain't like I'm Michael Carter. I don't talk forever. I breathe.
Here come the comments.
But look, so I mean, a dope black thought. Look, here goes one right here. I'm not sure who it is on.
It's probably Mike. We need to sit down. Nope.
Is that Carter? I don't know who that is. We booting them off just in case it's Carter.
I don't think that's Carter. I think that's Marcus.
No, it's not.
It's not. Okay.
Ian and Emily. Okay, Emily Rosehill's a friend of the show also. I believe I met Ian at
a friend of Hashim. What up, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, friend of me and Kat as well. She brought us brownies during the pandemic that were some of the best brownies ever.
These are brownies.
Hey, look, these were some of the best home cooked brownies ever. They're working on a Denver ballot initiative called Waste No More. If anyone wants to help get signatures, hey guys, tons of stuff out here. Just check in with us and do your research. We're not making this stuff up out of nowhere. There's lots of people out here working. We're working hard.
Yes.
So anybody got a dope black thought to finish this off?
Hold your elected officials to the fire. That goes all the way up the chain to Biden. If he ran on the platform for environmental causes, we need to hold his feet to the fire. It's 2021. Stop letting them get away with running on one thing and doing something else.
Absolutely. And that last thought that I was thinking was a good dope black thought was that DBT needs to partner in broadcast. We need to do our part as a platform and partner with these people that are like-minded in interests. And because we're all fighting the same fight in so many places. We have different life experiences, but on environmental issues, we absolutely got to come together.
All right. And my dope black thought would be,
hey Marcus, we're about to get out of here. You want to say something?
I mean, yeah, go ahead, Marcus. I was talking.
Go ahead, Hashim. When you're talking, he's not. Go ahead.
Listen. So many things. And my dope black thought is going to be a long one. It's my church window dope black thought. When you hear things, always trust it, but then verify it. Like we got corrected. It wasn't brownies that she brought. It says that it was cookies and Rice Krispie treats. So always do your research on it and do not dilute black. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let it ride on that unless you got one, Stefania.
I'm good.
All right. Well, with that being said, DBT out. Thanks for watching, y'all.
What is love? It's a drug. Let it rotate, just to hit back in it. Calling me an Uber just to hit back in it. Use the cash out like pay, I spend it. Is it really worth the wait? I don't get it. If I didn't gravitate, taste that wet emotion.